Thank you for watching the Whittemore Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host Edward McQueen and April Garner.
Good evening. It says it's time for broadcast. That's what it is. I'm your host, Ed McQueen, with the Whittemore Community Magazine live right here on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, www.wcmagazine.net. I'm going to say it again, www.wcmagazine.net. So good evening to everyone. Glad you can join us. We have some very interesting information, and as we always do, that community and beyond can use. In this case, we're still focusing on this COVID because it seems like every day is something new that comes out. And what's really been missing in great length is a stream of data, and that's been compiled, and no one has, at least we haven't seen it anyway. However, we have with us as guest today, we have our guest that can show what he has compiled. And with every attempt today, we're going to try to go through what he has done. And he's a very, very capable individual, has his own consulting firm in Conway, and in consulting and doing things, and providing statistics like today, and statistics about, in this case, the COVID virus. It seems like we can never get enough information about it. However, hopefully this could provide you, audience, with something, with some data that could be very revealing, and something that hopefully, you could use. Okay, because we need all of this in order to make informed decisions in our daily life. So, without further ado, I want to bring on our special guest, Mr. Dave Wilson of Wilson Consulting in Conway, South Carolina, by the way, based in Conway. Wilson Consulting LLC in Conway. And Mr. Wilson has been doing data collection and analysis impacting South Carolina, Conway especially, Horry County, and schools, especially schools. And a focus has been on the Black American, their characteristics, or not just behavior, but characteristics and aptitude tests that that probably needs to be looked at, and to see where our children are. So without further ado, Mr. Wilson, good evening. How are you doing today?
Good evening. Thank you for having me, Mr. McQueen. I wanted to share with the audience. First, my background is basically in engineering and mathematics, and that's where I'm capable of doing a lot of research on statistical analysis. I've did a lot of research on family history too. That's another big pet peeves of mine. And I've worked with a lot of people, helping them with the stats. I've helped doctoral students get their defense and the statistical aspect of it. I just finished with one, I think a month ago, and she passed with flying colors. But anyway, getting back to this, the COVID-19, what I wanted to try to do, because there's so much talk, a lot of reports on cases and deaths and all the things that's going on with coronavirus. And many times people get snapshot pieces of information. It's not given in the context of the background. They'll say 5 people died today. That scare everybody to death, or this many people has COVID-19. And what I am going to do today is kind of look at it for South Carolina and Horry County, to narrow it down to those two. And said, look at this is the way the data looks in the background of the people, the community of, Horry County. So without any further, I'm going to present it to you in more of a graphical analysis. And that way you'll be able to see just pictures of pictures and some numbers of how the data look, and how it looked over the last year since March of 2021. So that's what I'm going to do. So bear with me. It's not a lot of statistics. It's basic charts that the general public would want to see or should be able to see to get a better understanding. So it's not deep statistics. It's just taking the data that are collected from the Department of Environmental Control and trying to show it in a different light than they may have shown some of it, even though they have a lot of it out there. Mine is more geared to the general public so they can kind of understand what the noise is all about with the coronavirus when they hear a number being thrown out. So without any more explanation, let's go into the presentation.
Yeah,
And
I sent out the information to the audience, to our viewers, saying that it's going to be in the simplest terms. So we're counting on that. And from what I've read, it appeared to be in the most simplest terms you can find.
yes,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So let's just hope that is perceived that way. And we'll look at our comment side. If people have any comments, they can certainly send us some comments in. Okay. So
Great, thank you.
all right. Let's go and see if we can navigate now. If we have difficulty navigating, I'm going to go to a share screen. So I ask the audience to please bear with us. Okay. And then you can begin talking. Okay.
Okay. This is what the topic is, an objective snapshot, and that's really what it is. It's a snapshot because, as you know, the virus, the numbers are increasing every day. People are catching the virus. They are getting well, recovering. A few people still dying from it. So what I'm doing, and the numbers change every day. In other words, I snapshot this one at the middle of last week and said, this is the data that I have. And so
Okay,
that's why you see the word snapshot and objective. Objective is, again, trying to look at the data in the context of the populations and the community that being reported. So we are going to the next page.
Okay, this is where we probably got into something, but I'm gonna go in and see if we can't get a better shot. Okay.
Okay.
Let's do this. Okay, we can go. All right.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So what I'm going to do, kind of go through. So bear with me. I tried to break it down into major topics, cases and death by age. So I picked those two. I picked death and cases to take a look at. And I'm going to do a comparison of South Carolina and Horry County, how people statewide are faring with the COVID and how Horry County. And I'm going to look at it through the cases and death by race and ethnicity, and look at, is there more African Americans dying or contracting the AIDS, not AIDS, but the COVID virus. We'll look at that and make comparisons of both South Carolina and Horry County. And then we're going to take a quick look at the schools. The schools keep a pretty good running, the cumulative, what they've had since they started keeping this data, which the Department of Environmental Control only started a few months ago. I think Horry County Schools started compiling data longer than that. But all of my data that I have on here are from the Department of Environmental Control. And then I'll do a quick summary. Next. And this is the first topic, looking at the cases by age. And we'll also be looking at deaths by age. Now, if you look at this chart here, it's you see from under 10, yeah, we do have people under 10 with virus, and you have a percentage. And as you look at the bars are the raw count of the blue bars, are the raw count of the COVID cases. Now, this chart is on cases by age, and the age go from less than 10 up to 81 plus, out to 100 or however far it would go. And the yellow line shows the percentage. See, percentages are very important when you're looking at numbers. Many times a report will come out and say there's X amount of cases of people between, say, 11 and 20, which is roughly 60,000. You say, oh my goodness. But then when you look at the percentage of that, their contribution is 13%, which is high. But again, it's not much higher than some of the other age groups like 21 and 30. Now, when you go down to age 78 and 80 and 81, you might say, wow, these people have a lower rate of contacting COVID-19. Not looking at it from the chart here, you would think that, but we're going to show later on that that's not really true. And therefore, again, that's my objective in some point here, is to say, looking at this, you could draw conclusions, but it may not be the correct conclusion. Looking at this chart the way it is. Next. Now, looking at this by age, now this is the deaths. And everyone knows about the fact that the older people have been the one that borne the battle of the COVID deaths. And if you look at the ages from going from less than 10 all the way up to the 81, when all the deaths are concentrated, that's the higher contribution to the death. Now, this chart takes the total number of deaths from COVID-19, and it says these are the age groups that are contributing to that that total number. And as you look to if you look at the left, we talk about school a lot. That's a big one now around the country, where teachers are refusing to go into the schools, or they're afraid, and so forth. But if you look at this one, this is South Carolina. In that school age group, you have virtually no students that are died from COVID-19, and that is pretty consistent throughout the world. There's not just South Carolina or Horry County, which I'm going to show you in a minute. This is true throughout the world. They're just not young people under that 20, as you look at the left of the chart, dying of COVID. Okay, next. Now, what you see here is a comparison of, this is South Carolina right on. We haven't gotten into Horry County yet. What you see with the blue line is that's COVID cases. And you notice how, again, this is just looking at the percentages. The blue line is the same as the line on the first chart. It just shows the cases from the younger people. Again, yes, younger people. And the key thing here, you notice that the age up to 20, 25 do contract AIDS, but the previous chart showed that nobody died of it. So that's always been, again, the point, that the younger people are not dying of COVID-19. So they get it, but they're not dying from it. Okay. So what happened is this chart here now is Horry County. It looks just almost identical to the blue one. The first chart was the blue chart. So the behavior are raw numbers, and the blue line is, or the maroon line is a percentage per age bracket, and it behaves pretty much the same way. And again, you notice the older people have a smaller percentage in terms of the total, but again, you just saw earlier in the state that they have a much higher death rate. Next. And here is the chart of Horry County of death by age. You again, it looks almost the same from the naked eye. It's slightly different, but it's basically the same. It flattened out around 78, 71 years old out to 80. Again, this is a snapshot, and it may change coming down. We would hope and pray that it will come down. And again, you look back at the school, that school age group, you if I look at it closely, you have 0. Again, no students are dying, because if they would have a number within that age range on the left where we have basically 0. Again, it's consistent throughout the world. That the graph you're looking at right now is consistent throughout the world. Next. And again, this graph. Now you've probably seen this one earlier. It's for South Carolina. This is Horry County, and basically they look pretty much the same. As the age, it shoots up, but you notice the people who are getting the COVID tested positive is kind of flat. It starts off and it's kind of stays flat across the spectrum. But guess what? The death rate when you get older is starts to climb exponentially. Next. Now, my next one is when we're going to take a look at COVID's deaths and age compared to Horry County. Now, what I just showed you was separate charts of South Carolina and Horry County of cases and deaths. What this chart is going, the next few slides is going to take those two, South Carolina and Horry County, and put them side by side so you can see the comparison. And again, this looks very familiar. It looks, again, the shape pretty much the way the other first one looked. You have this kind of going up, and then it kind of goes down. Again, these are just percentages based on the age and the total amount of cases by age. Looking this is just a comparison. You've seen the data on both of these in the first section, and the blue and the orange is just saying, okay, put them side by side so I can see, and basically, yes, they are the same. Next. Now, this is the real measurement. What you see here, this is so important, is you're looking at the cases per 100,000. That's the truest way to measure anything, is you have to look at how do you have everybody on the same playing field to see who is performing the best or not as good. And what you see here for the cases, now compared to the other ones, again, this is cases, it's pretty flat. And basically what I'm saying here is that a person 70 years old have no more COVID positive tests than a person under 30 or so forth, under 70. The way I laid it out here, I have 70 plus and 70 under. And how you do a chart like this, you have to look at the population. So what I've done here, I looked at the population of people 70 years old and older. You have to take that population out as a subpopulation and look at it from that perspective. And by doing so, you get a better feel, and you will know whether there are more people with COVID, I keep saying age, but COVID-19 who's 70 plus. And looking at this graph, there's basically no difference when you look at it from this perspective. Again, this is a true apples to apples type of measurements by looking at the what we call in statistics subpopulations of various groups. Next. Okay, this is again just looking at the death, looking at the death rates, and again you can see you got the blue and the orange, and it's going up with age, and this is again pretty much consistent throughout the world. This whole COVID pandemic is killing older people. Those are the ones that are going on ventilators or ultimately dying from it. And it's stacked in the right side. Next. Now, this is very acute, and it again, it's looking at it per 100,000, and it really, really, truly drives the point home of how people are faring with this virus. There's 70 plus age at the state level, which is the blue. It is a person who in that age bracket is about 18 times more likely to die from COVID than a person under 70 years old. 18 times more likely. Okay. Again, this is looking at it per population. And what, again, let me repeat, the 70 plus, you look at the population of the people in that age group. And that's how you're able to come up with a true and a mathematical accurate way of describing a fatality rate of people in that bracket. Horry County, you have the orange, that's the right side, 70 plus. The people in that age bracket, again, looking at the population of people in Horry County that are 70 years old or older, they have a 15 mortality rate from COVID than the people who are under 70. And again, the earners, even though getting close to 70, you have a higher, but that rate is being pulled down because you have so many young people under 70 that are pulling that number down. But again, it makes a discrete demarcations line here, who is dying from COVID-19. Next. Now, this one is this section here. We're going to look at COVID cases and death by race and ethnicity. And what I tried to do here is look at the larger groups of people by this group in South Carolina and Horry County. For example, the red number here is the proportion of the population. Again, a chart like this does not really, again, hit on that again. Doesn't give you the true picture, because what this chart shows is the contribution of the percentage of each one of these groups in South Carolina and Horry County that make up the total number, say, of cases in Horry County and the state. There's two separate entities. And what you notice, say, with the African American, the blacks, their rate of 9.9% is far less than the population. Actually, everyone in this group are far less than the population of theirs. So again, it just tells and obviously you would expect the African American to be lower than Caucasian, for example, because we make up a smaller percentage of the population, say, of Horry County. We make up about 13%, as you can see. But once we go into the 100,000 per 100,000, that's when you get a more accurate reading of really where a person stands here. Next. And this is for the complexity of the Hispanic population, what the state has done, and I just followed the state. I kept the non-Hispanic and the unknown because all these categories are self-identified. This is how a person elect to identify. And now if I look at this here, we have the Hispanic on the right. That's the only one you're concerned with, 6.4% and 5.8%. Now, what you will notice there, that their proportion in the population is 6.8 in South Carolina and around 6.3 in Horry County. That is very dangerously close to the population, which is different from some of the other groups, say white and black. So from there, one could deduce that the Hispanic may have a higher rate of cases. Next. Now, and you can see from this one here, the chart you're looking at now, that is the 100,000, and that is the more accurate way of explaining statistics. And as you can see, if you look at the state, which is the blue, the Hispanic has the highest per 100,000, which was reflected in the previous chart, because their number of the total contribution of the cases were very close to their number in the population. So as you can see, looking at Hispanic blue and Hispanic orange, you have those two bars are the highest in South Carolina. The Hispanic has the highest at 9,457 in Horry County per 100,000. The Hispanic has 8,668. So even though they're a smaller number, they are suffering a disproportionate higher number of deaths, not the cases, in their community than any others of those two major groups of blacks and Caucasian. Next. And again, this one is looking at the death rates of African Americans. Again, it's now a lot of these charts are probably starting to look the same, but what we are trying to do here is look at the cases and look and compare those. And now we're looking at the death rate. And again, you look at and focusing on, say, the first two major groups, white and African Americans or black. You have 27.9% state, which is somewhat a high number, even though their proportion in the population is higher than Horry County. Horry County, the total, if I look at the total number of cases in Horry County, blacks only contribute 9.7% to the cases, and their population is 13%. So it gives you some idea on that is, when you hear numbers, it sounds like we all are dying of us catching a case COVID, but not necessarily when you look at the data. This data are saying that it is not as overwhelming as compared to the other groups, as sometimes the raw numbers might suggest. Next. And again, this is my the Hispanic one that has the mix. So on the right, you can notice the right set of bars, Hispanic. You have the 2.8 and the 3.1%. So next. Now here again, where you can see the 100,000 per 100,000, you have going across. You have the blue, and then you have the orange, and then at the state level, blacks are more apt. They had a higher rate than the Horry County. They're about 1.2 or 1.3 times more apt to die of dying at a rate 1.2 higher than the whites. And then in Horry County, we are dying less than say Caucasian at 1.21. And I put some notes and the little stickums on each one of these slides. That way, when you do it, able to read them and do a full screen, you'll be able to read those notes. And I put those notes. Just hold on a second. I put those notes there for so they could stand somewhat independent. When a person reading these slides, they will have some notes there to read and help them interpret these slides. Now, the key here, you notice that yet the Hispanic has a higher number of cases, but they have the lowest number of death rates. You would need a medical person to explain that. I can't explain the reason why, but that's what you see. They have a higher number per capita of cases, but they have a lower number of deaths per capita. That's the Hispanic population. Okay, next. And here is just kind of taking a quick look at the male and female. They're pretty much about even in terms of cases by gender and unknown. So you can kind of look at those. It's more of a linear type of following there where they're pretty much even. One is slightly higher in Horry County for cases, but by gender, but nevertheless they are pretty much the same. Same thing here with the death rate. Of course, Horry County has a higher death rate of males, but a lower in the state. The state has a lower death rate of males. So the chart doesn't really get at too much here no more than just kind of have to give you an idea how the rate of death by gender is faring in Horry County. Now, here I'm going to look at some historic patterns of what happened. So again, these are pictures in the sense that they're graphics. It's going to give you some idea of looking back to March of last year. We are getting close to another year, a whole year. And what I want you to do is you're looking at the blue. That's the pattern. You notice the pattern is somewhat erratic. We started March to the far left, March of last year. It was going along slow, and we weren't that panicking, but the schools had already closed, I think, around March or April of last year. And then it took this dive around June of last year. So, and then we all kind of thought by I think over the summer we thought we were kind of getting out of it, and then as you went into September, it took a massive increase in and over to the right. So this is what we call an area chart. It's just a picture that kind of tell you how it is behaving. Now, one thing about a picture like this one, it's hard to predict. I tried to run some mathematical simulations on this, and it doesn't really change much. And this is something type of chart you can't predict nothing what is going to happen. Now, if you notice all the way to the right, January looks like it's coming down, but that's because the data has not caught up yet. Now, it still could be down some, but there's always a delay in data by the time it catches up with the reporting, so they can have the full number of January, which they don't really have yet. So you go with what the available numbers they have. And one other thing I'll mention while I'm on this chart, that's why we had so much problems trying to predict the pandemic, which way it was going to go. In mathematics, it's very hard to predict pandemics as how they're going to behave. Now, this chart follows that theory. It's hard to predict. If you look at it, the model used to even try to do this chart and try to do one out to the future looks almost the same or as erratic as this particular graph. So that's a point I wanted to make. Now, this is the death rate. It looks similar, right? The first one, the first blue one was the let's see, go back a little bit. Right there, yeah, right there. Okay, yeah, I'm looking at. Okay, that's good. Okay, now go to the next one. It looks that one, and then that here. They look almost the same. Again, it's a type of behavior that is hard to predict. Therefore, I just wanted to show you so you could see. We hope the future going out into the next year, the finish of this year, that it won't look like that. It'll look like the beginning there of the chart, a flat curve that will eventually become zero. Again, you notice the behavior pretty much like the state. It went no real pattern that one could say, okay, we are out of the woods. You don't know. You just can't. There's no one who with mathematics that will predict this the outcome where this thing is going to head. Same thing here. This is Horry County, the last orange one here, and again, I wanted to point out that's the picture you want to have in your mind. That's the way this thing is behaving. It's erratic. It's erratic. Now, this is the cumulative and 30-day running average for cases of COVID-19 in Horry County schools. And what I did is I just compile just to talk a little bit about these. You see, for example, just take the first line, the Academy of Arts and Science. You have five, less than five for these are students, and less than five and zero. I color coded it, and basically what you have is anytime you have over five. This is the way the state South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control counts it as they get reports from the various school districts around the state. If they have over five, they note it. If they have under five, they will just say under five. It could be 2, 3. Matter of fact, under five is from 1 to 4, and either it's going to. And if it's a zero, then it's not a. There's no cases there. So what I did here is just color coded so it could jump out into the viewer face fairly fast. With green means zero, and the yellow says caution in a way that because it's between 1 and 4, small. And the red means that it's 5 or higher. Again, now when you look at a chart like this, it's true that there's some cases of kids now that they're starting to count that may have not showed up in the other ones per se. It showed up, but again, there's no deaths associated with it. You have some cases, and again, it's very small numbers. But again, it scares people to death when somebody have AIDS or big COVID, or somebody gets very sick from it. And this chart here, just wanted to look at the amount of schools, looking at 58 schools in Horry County, and looking at the ones that had a score higher than 5 with the caution. It's just a summary of the table that I just showed you. Okay, and these are summaries of what I just went over, and I pretty much put this down so the reader would be able to read it when they get a copy of these slides. It talks about every one of the slides in there, repeating the same thing that I had talked about. So that pretty much wraps that up of what I wanted to say about the data analysis that I compiled on the COVID-19 for South Carolina and Horry County for cases and deaths. Of course, there's hospitalizations and a lot of other recovery and so forth, but we wouldn't have time to do that in one chart, one presentation.
Yeah, look, man, if we didn't get a digestive full on that one, I don't know what to say. But I thought you explained it well. I don't see any comments yet from anyone because we decided to just have you go straight through it, because had we interrupted, I think it may have been difficult just going back to that.
Right. Okay.
Slides. Okay. So we had to do that way. So
All
listen.
right.
Mr. Wilson, you just hang on. But
okay.
We're gonna take a break here to kind of let the viewers know about the latest edition of the magazine.
Mm-hmm.
You may have got yours by way of email. I'm not sure. Our latest February issue of the magazine.
Right.
Yeah, and it's very, very interesting this year, and we want to. We decided that we're just going to, just give our viewers a preview, but it's going to be a momentary piece each time. So for those of you who please hang on in there with us. Here we go. Let's do this. So salute to Henry Godwin. He's a principal in Charleston, South Carolina. He's a principal that just received the huge award from Walmart. Of course, you can always subscribe to us at this page. Reminding the people of what our radio and TV program. Of course, the network has this talk about COVID, which we just talked about. A couple of veterans received quilts this year. You can read about that. Always eat at mites, big mites. Our articles are very informative. There's some black leaders offering some very, very key steps in racial wealth gap. They have good, more leaders giving us financial advice. United Negro College Fund Ball. 105 and 91. We got two right in the Cochran community. Yep, as everybody who support our small businesses, okay, we thrive on these. These are more doctors. TBL Soul Cafe, first year anniversary. Our magazine this month is the 4-page magazine. And we hope to have a host of information for everybody to consume. Lost some beloved ones, pillars in our community. Okay, there you have it. All of our supporters are advertisers. Mr. Henry, Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
I don't know where I get the name from Henry from. I don't know. But I jotted down a few questions I'd like for you to address, and that was the update of that data. That data was as of what month and what date?
Yeah, that data was as of January the 30th, and there was a couple other pieces that of the age of 26, February the 6th.
Oh, okay. So you what you presented today is pretty much it's pretty clear. I mean, it's pretty up to date.
Yes, it is up to date because see what happened here. You with data like this, it's not going to change much in the next week or two. So basically, data when you're doing analysis of it, really was on the 30th or on the 15th. The pattern is the same.
Oh, okay.
In other words, what they saw is if I do one tonight, it wouldn't be any difference.
Right.
You may have a fluctuation of 1 or 2, 5 here, a 10, but it's not going to change the pattern. Even though
Yes.
that's why you call it a snapshot, you have to call it kind of a snapshot because uh, it's you're basically telling the people this is what it is now. Within the last 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I have been looking at the data for a year, watching the fluctuations and so forth, and the patterns, when you can have a pattern. But you notice those last few charts with the area, it was just like a sawtooth or something like that. It didn't really have a pattern.
yeah.
It's up and down. Yeah.
Right. I just want to hold true to my word about when I'm telling the viewers that it's going to be in the simplest of terms. I want to make sure that that was the case.
Was it?
Yeah. Well, it depends. It depends. I mean,
Yeah. It's some if you're not used to seeing these type of things, it's
yeah,
what
and
the
that was
eye
my
are trained to
concern. Yeah.
see. It's
Yeah.
not
Right.
your familiar territory, and sometimes it looks different. And especially if we could have got the full screen where it could blow up in the face. That's the sometimes it kind of penetrates the brain, if you will, a little bit
Yeah.
more when you're dealing with numbers. Yeah,
Absolutely. And
yeah,
all those things. I guess that's prompted me to ask these kind of questions. Okay.
right.
Um, at some points in your slides, it requires an analytical background or some
Yeah,
people,
some of the detail. Yes, yes.
and hopefully we caught most of all of the viewers or somebody who are watching. Of course, this is going to be this is recorded, so it's going to be shown again on our website. Okay,
Right.
so if they have any more questions, of course they can proceed to do that.
Yes.
Now, the other question that came up was how did you validate the information? I don't know what they mean.
Right. That my information. I take the raw data from the South Carolina Department of Environmental Control, Health. Those as a standard, and then I take the data and I take the same data that they publish. Right. They
Right,
might be a slightly different, but it's the same numbers.
right,
And then I put it into say bar chart. I look at it per 100,000. Now they look at a lot of it per 100,000 also.
yeah,
Okay, that's a standard care of practice in the statistics is
yeah, yeah, yeah.
100,000 or per million, and so the data is sourced from South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control.
I could probably answer the question, but I'm just put it out there for my audience. But why you don't have a figure lower than 100,000 as a per capita,
Because
especially
a hundred
South
thousand is
Carolina?
a
Yeah,
good question. Yeah, 100,000 is a standard in measuring that. It's kind of a when you said dealing with populations of countries, we tend to use a million, so many
yeah,
per million. But
right,
say, for example, with a state the size of South Carolina, or even some of the other states, we use a standard. That's a standard called 100,000 per 100,000. And basically,
right.
what it does, it makes everything equal. It's like having a space out there, and you have a small bowl and a large bowl. But if you put that small ball in a very small place, that ball is going to look larger than what it is.
Absolutely, yeah,
But if you put them in the same playing field space, the big one and the large one, it stands out. Now you can see how it's an even, what we call an even playing field. And
yeah.
it is as it's a standard. Well, it's a mathematical standard that really tells you what you are looking at.
Yeah, now, it's just I think we failed to ask you, or I failed to ask you in the beginning, which is probably I should have asked you. Why did you pick Conway to establish your uh, business like this for as a consultant? I know you're
Well,
retired from some place.
I'm originally from Horry County, right? I
Okay.
went to high school here at Chestnut High School back in the good old days. I don't know if they
All
were
right,
good
all
or
right.
whatever, but this is where my family live out in the Longs Red Bluff area.
Okay.
And when we moved down, I didn't have any property down here, so a lot of people, when they move back home, they'll build a home on the property that their parents left them and so forth. I
Yeah,
didn't have
right.
that.
Yeah,
So we wanted to build in a place where once we are gone, our sons or whoever would sell the house, it would have
absolutely.
property value. It would have value.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, so you look at Conway as the last frontier, I guess, uh, so to speak, in
Yeah.
terms
It
of,
was the end of the line.
yeah,
Yeah. This
yeah.
is where we'll be. Yeah.
Could you give us a little bit of a little bit more of your background in terms of your education? I understand that you were working at, you didn't mention where you were working before. You told me some of these things, but unless
Yes.
it's classified, I don't know.
Yes. No, no. I worked I retired from IBM, and then I went over to General Electric. I retired from both of those places. Uh, I studied. Well, I graduated from high school in Horry County, and I went off to the military, served in the Vietnam War, and from there, I moved. After the military, I went to New York, and that's where I met my wife, and I attended college in New York, graduating from engineering degrees from City College of New York and Manhattan College, which
Right.
is a Catholic college up in the Bronx, New York. And while working, I taught as an adjunct professor. I taught mathematics and engineering at Dutchess Community College when we were living in Poughkeepsie, New York. That was after I got out of college, and then we moved to Connecticut because IBM had the early retirement because they were downsizing,
Yeah.
and picked up with General Electric. Then I taught mathematics, primary statistics at Quinnipiac University in Hamden, Connecticut. And I taught also at Sacred Heart University. I taught statistics. That one is in what is it, Norwood, Connecticut. I'm doing this is a lot of adjunct. My primary work has been in engineering. And I served 1 year on IBM faculty loan program, but down at a program they had at Columbia University in New York City, and I'm going back 30 years. So
So you just established yourself as a person that is well qualified to validate the data that you have and to compile the data that you've shown us. Okay, I really wanted to get that over to let the people know, what kind of person they were listening to.
exactly, yeah.
Okay, so and we've got let's have a comment here from one of our viewers who said, Miss Priscilla Fuller. She says, Mr. Wilson, what would you want the takeaway to be for the average citizen in regard to your data?
Yeah, I would want the average citizen to be able to say yes, the COVID virus pandemic is very bad. It's killing people. It's doing a lot of things, but it is not as it's not killing as many people as it may appear when you look at the population. That's why I keep using that 100,000, one per 100,000. And
Right.
also another thing I would like from the takeaway in Horry County, we have a lot of African Americans that are contracting AIDS and dying from AIDS, but it's not
You
high.
mean COVID? You mean the
I
COVID?
mean, COVID. I keep saying that for some reason. Thank you. But it's
COVID
not.
hit us hard some time
It's
ago, right?
not. It's in the beginning. It was a little slightly higher than the whites, but now it is lower. We are dying or getting sick from COVID at a lower rate, say, than Caucasian. Now, the misnomer you hear a lot that we are dying at a disproportionate higher. That is false. Because when
Uh,
you look at it just with raw numbers, it sounds that way. But when you put it on that same playing field with the small ball and the large ball, you take that small
right.
ball out of the small field and put it in the big field with the other one, and they all on the same, then it comes to light more. It's like a big fish in a small pond idea. It looks, but when you get into the big pond or the big one where everybody's in, then it's much smaller. That's one thing that I would want people to take away. And also, this biggest one to me would be the school children, that age bracket from this from kindergarten to 20 years old. The chart I showed there about that age bracket is consistent around the globe. I've looked at cases around the globe, and basically that age group are not dying of COVID. I would like for people to kind of get that through their heads. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Looks like our time is approaching, and the time is up. But with this kind of information, man, people pay dearly for this kind of information from your consulting fees and stuff like that. But look, and we owe you a lot of gratitude for discussing this information because it could be between life and death for a lot of people. Yeah,
Yes, indeed.
it helps you make a decision.
Yes.
Okay, it either instills fear in you or it takes it away. Okay,
Yes.
with those statistics.
Yes.
And with that, people make decisions,
Yes.
good or bad.
Absolutely.
So I want to commend you on that, and we get to talk to you again. Keep updating this stuff, brother. So we can.
Thank you, and thank you for having me, for inviting me. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So and before we go, we didn't have any more comments, but before we go, just want to allow our viewers to see if they want to another view at our magazine, the upcoming magazine, which is the February issue. Salute to Mr. Henry Darby. Okay, and just want to let people know that it's a 40-page magazine this time, and the hard copy is a little tardy. So we also want to show about how people can get copies of our magazine. You can see it there, the Widow Community Magazine, and it's you can subscribe. Send to the Whittemore Community Magazine, P.O. Box 2391, Conway, South Carolina 29528. Printed copies of $85 if you don't have to mail them out. If you send them by postage, it's $110 per year. Okay, all of these are per year. So electronic copies are $50. Okay, so you can contact Ms. Jenna Falk, Flowers Falk. She's at 843-248-9390. 843-248-9390. Or you can contact me, 202-460-1390. She's our treasurer. Okay. So, again, to our viewers, we bid you a good evening, and see you next week, same time at 7 p.m. God bless. Hope that you're enjoying us at 7 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Wilson, again.
And thank you again, and thank the audience for listening.
We're going to let's do this.
Thank you for watching the Whittemore Community Magazine live on Facebook. You can watch a rebroadcast of this episode by visiting WCM Live on YouTube.